Good morning. June 10th, 2014. My Brooks goals. 1. Take honors in AP classes and get A pluses. 2. Learn how to skate and then make varsity ice hockey. In parentheses, I pick things up quickly. 3. Get a science internship at a hospital. 4. Make first boat for crew in the spring. 5. Write a book. And last but not least, 6. Make awesome friends and be happy. I could not help but laugh out loud as I read through this list a few months ago while I was going through old, extremely embarrassing photo booth pictures and memos on my computer. I clicked the notes icon and scrolled to the bottom until I came to this hidden gem I made 4 years ago on my, at the time, brand new laptop. On June 10th, almost 3 months before I would arrive at Brooks as an anxious, naive little freshman, I recorded my biggest, most important goals and expectations for my Brooks experience. I have no recollection of ever making this list of goals, and frankly, no recollection of the person that created it. Nevertheless, I did in fact have these aspirations at one time in my life, and I certainly had a plan for how the past 4 years were supposed to go. The nerdy, academically driven, wide-eyed freshman who wrote this list was determined to thrive and be successful at a place like Brooks where opportunity is all around us. So naturally, I came up with a game plan of all the things I would do and the person I would be. By the time I was a senior, I would be known as the short but funny, athletic, outgoing, academic weapon with a huge presence on campus in all types of clubs and leadership positions. That was the goal. I think it took maybe 2 weeks for me to realize that I'd have to go back to the drawing board and come up with another identity for myself because that one was already taken. Thank you, Jason Gold. I was just as eager to define myself in our community as I was to accomplish every item on my Brooks checklist, which brings me to number 1. Take honors in AP classes and get A pluses. In the first week of school alone, I was in for a rude awakening. After my first honors physics quiz freshman year, I called my dad on the phone in a panic. I can still remember the stress, staring at a single problem about a tortoise and a hare, and their velocities as they raced or something like that. I don't really know or remember, but then again, I didn't know it when I took it either. I got an 80 and thought that the world was going to end and the sun would not come up the next day. To say that I overreacted was an understatement, but I had never been so challenged academically prior to Brooks. In middle school, I prided myself on my grades, always striving to do better every year and ultimately come to a school like Brooks. I possessed the same love for learning that I have now, yet my passion and academic curiosity were clouded by the empty desire for a neatly printed row of A pluses on a report card. While I certainly want to push myself and do the best I can academically, I've realized that learning for the sole purpose of learning is more valuable than any mark on a piece of paper. Learn because you want to better yourself. Learn to develop a better understanding of the world around you and acknowledge the fact that education does not only take place in the classroom. We're constantly learning from our teammates and peers, our coaches and dorm parents. That, to me, is the most important responsibility of our community. Take advantage of the educational resources around you. Value the conversations and debates that spring up in the dining hall and the dorm, and as Dusty always encourages, never stop asking why. Even by the end of freshman year, while I by no means got all A pluses as I had so wrongfully expected, I had already become twice the student I was before. There was no feeling like walking out of Mr. Hesse's classroom after spending hours studying and finally achieving that moment of clarity when the concept finally clicked. Ever since then, it's been those moments of genuine learning that I crave rather than a letter grade. The second bullet on my Brooks agenda is my personal favorite. I signed up to play JV girls ice hockey during the winter at Brooks, having skated just once before in my life. When I showed up to my first practice, I could barely skate, let alone turn or stop or even attempt to go backwards. For anyone who has never seen a JV girls hockey game here, our games are probably the most entertaining sporting events on campus. While we do have real talent on the team, in my opinion, I am and have always been terrible at hockey. It's been 4 years now, after having ice time every single day in the winter for practice, and I still cannot pivot and can only confidently do wobbly crossovers with my right leg. My freshman year, I led the team in penalties for a while, which is kind of amazing because I was down on the ice 95% of the time during every game. I can't really believe that I had a long-term goal to eventually make varsity ice hockey here at Brooks, not only because I'm atrocious at the sport, but because playing JV girls hockey has single-handedly been the best experience I have had these past 4 years. During the fall, I count down the days until hockey starts, and during the spring, I complain about how short the winter season is, even though I'm pretty sure it's the longest. There's never a day goes by during the winter when I don't look forward to getting on the ice with my teammates to play handball, choreograph dance routines, and occasionally play some slowed-down version of hockey. I have learned to love the sport and truly appreciate watching my teammates and the varsity teams play because I now understand how difficult it is just to stand up on skates, let alone shoot and stick handle. But most importantly, I have learned to laugh at myself and just have the best time out there with my closest friends. I don't think I've ever laughed harder than I did when Annabelle Leeson fought a girl 2 years ago, or when Catherine and I absolutely decked each other by accident during a game of freeze tag so hard I had tears in my eyes. Of course, I can't forget about the time when the referee stopped one of our games to pick up a random neon yellow jersey that mysteriously appeared in front of the net mid-play. Everyone in the rink was confused, except for myself and a few of my teammates, who immediately realized that the jersey fell out of our goalie, Jules' pants, because she used it as a protective shield every game. I would not trade my time with this team for anything, and I only wish that I had more of it. As sad as I am to end my hockey career here, I am so glad that a part of it will continue with my younger sister, who decided to play because of how much I loved it. No offense, Jamie, but you're 1,000 times worse than I ever was, which is really saying a lot. But nothing makes me happier than seeing you and the rest of the new players love the team as much as I do. So to that end, I'm just really, really relieved that I never accomplished my original pipe dream. While it is clear that my goals coming into this school were mainly delusional and idealized, number 3 on the list was an aspiration of mine that I do recall thinking about and putting effort in to achieve. On my very first tour at Brooks, I strolled through the science forum and stopped when I came to a poster with photos of Brooks students in blue scrubs. I read the blurb just below the photos about Brooks's Students on the Forefront of Science program and how students potentially interested in careers in biology and medicine could work alongside real doctors at local hospitals over the summer. I only feel sorry for my poor tour guide because the rest of the time she showed me around campus, I kept asking about this program to no end. I've always been fascinated by science and have wanted to go to medical school since I was 12 years old. For those of you who know me, you know I've spent a lot of time in the hospital throughout my life. For those of you who don't, I have a rare metabolic bone disorder that has had a huge impact on my life in a positive way. Fun fact, if you've ever found it odd that I'm the shortest person here, but my dad is 6'3", you're not wrong, because my bone disorder is the reason why I failed to grow. But it is also the reason why I've developed my long-term goal to study medicine and help people like me. While it was scary and overwhelming as a toddler to constantly be poked and prodded with needles and all sorts of tests in the hospital, I eventually developed a fascination for the medical field. The first 3 years at Brooks flew by, but when it was finally the winter of junior year, I could not wait to apply for an SFS internship. Thankfully, I got my first choice internship to study under a neurosurgeon at Mass General. I spent a little over 8 weeks over the past summer observing 2 to 3 brain surgeries a day and working in a brain tumor research lab. I learned about immunotherapy, a new cancer treatment that uses the immune system to fight mutated cancer cells, and even got to assist in dissecting a cadaver head during a skills lab with neurosurgical residents. I also learned that I should never work in a lab because I accidentally killed thousands of the cells I was supposed to grow, and even dumped xylene down the sink while staining microscope slides, which in non-geek language is a huge no-no. But it's almost impossible for me to summarize my experience at MGH because it was beyond my expectations, which were set 3 years before I even had the internship. I was treated with the utmost respect by all of the doctors at the hospital, especially the neurosurgeon with whom I had worked and who has become a role model for me. Now, I think back to when I first saw Dr. Curry's picture on that poster in the science forum, and how you can never truly imagine that feeling of looking into a brain without being there, standing next to him. With hard work and tenacity, I made my Brooks goal happen. You're given the opportunity to achieve whatever you want here, so long as you set your mind to it and follow through. If you do have a goal in mind that you are intentional about and are willing to work for, as I did, there's nothing stopping you. My determination was certainly put to the test when I set out to accomplish goal number 4 of making varsity rowing. I first joined a crew club in the 7th grade after my cousin, who rowed in high school, told me that I would make a great coxswain. She said that coxswains are the small people who steer the boat, come up with the race plan, and yell at the rowers. I decided to give it a shot and went to Essex Rowing in Methuen 3 to 4 days a week, where I first discovered my complicated love for crew. Anyone who does crew or hears about it from the people who do understand what I mean by complicated. Believe it or not, I too learned how to row and have done my fair share of 5Ks on the erg. It is an exhausting sport, both mentally and physically. To this day, I still feel like I'm going to pass out at the start just before the officials call attention, row. But the pain and long hours put in are made up for by the unparalleled sense of understanding and dedication that is shared within a crew team. Coming into Brooks, I was eager to continue rowing and find friends who shared the same feelings about the sport that I did. When I came just short of making 4th boat my freshman year and started on JV with kids who had never done crew before, I was disappointed in myself. It was hard for me to imagine that I would ever make first boat, considering that there were tons of other coxswains, all older than I was, on the team already. I was tempted to quit and try something else. What was the point? It was unlikely that I would ever accomplish my goal anyways. This is the part where I tell you that quitting is never the answer. I know it's cliche, but I've learned that the hardest part about reaching your goals is not being afraid to fail. It's not supposed to be easy, and you're supposed to struggle. That is how you know it's all worth it in the end. I had to work harder to become the best coxswain I could than I ever had before. And when I did make first boat my sophomore year, I knew that I would have to continue putting in the effort, if not more effort, to maintain my goal. My experience on the girls' crew team at Brooks has shaped the person I am. Without it, I would not have gained the self-discipline and work ethic that I developed from my struggle, and I would not have been a part of such a close-knit group of passionate athletes who continue to push me to become better every day. There really is no feeling in the world like crossing the finish line first with 4 other girls who were there from the beginning and who also gave it all they had to win for each other. I couldn't imagine not being a part of this team because I was scared of falling short of my goal. Now, crew is absolutely still exhausting, and I still have to put in 100% all the time, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm excited for what is to come in my final season at Brooks and for the next 4 years as I watch my teammates move on to row in college. I couldn't be more proud of them, and I could not be more excited to continue rowing myself, especially because I get to begin that journey alongside my stroke seat, Emma English, who is way too humble to tell you that herself. Honestly, number 5 on the list is just the most random thing ever. I definitely don't remember trying to write a book, and I definitely don't know why I thought I would have the time to write one here. On top of that, I have no idea what I had planned to write about. All I can assume now is that this goal was a product of my passion for writing. Whether it's drafting poems in my free time or fictional short stories for class, I have always expressed myself through my writing. For me, writing is an escape, and I often find myself scribbling in my notebook when something is on my mind. In Miss Holmes's English class, both my sophomore and junior year, we often did free writes to start the day. The rules are simple: no censoring yourself, no worrying about grammar, and most importantly, no lifting the pencil off the paper. Well, I didn't think a whole lot about the free writes at the time. In the absence of them now, I understand how meaningful they are. Whether I knew it or not, I subconsciously wrote how I truly felt in those free writes. Today, I often find myself creating my own version of them between classes or during my frees when I have the time. So maybe you don't have to write a book to write something that's meaningful to you. Maybe it's just putting pen to paper and getting the thoughts out in a few words and sentences. Last but certainly not least, goal number 6, make awesome friends and be happy. As I described earlier, I had a picture of the person who I would be here. Like anyone else, I wanted to be well-liked, and I wanted to make sure that I found the right friends. As nervous as I was internally to make a group of friends here freshman year, I attempted to just go with it, act cool. This facade was painfully ruined after the first weekend on campus during a grade-wide game of Manhunt. It was a dark night behind Mr. Packard's house. My entire third form class gathered to participate in the game. Excited and eager to play, I hung around a few kids I met in some of my classes that week and began running around campus looking for places to hide. When I got lost from the group and wandered off down Main Street by myself, I saw two figures running towards me. I turned toward Mr. Carson's house and began sprinting as the two people were on an opposing team and were trying to tag me. It was very dark, which is why I did not see the small rock wall in the grass. I leapt forward, sliding down the grass on my stomach, and planted my face in the mud. I don't think John Clark and Justin Verissimo really knew what to say in that moment. As they stopped chasing me and tried to help me up. All I know now is that Justin never lets me forget it. But the best part of embarrassing instances like this is that you can share them with your friends. I have found the people I care so much about at Brooks through relatable, embarrassing moments. Because if someone sticks with you after you jumped out of your car, forgetting to put it in park, and watched it drive away, then they are a true friend. My friends never fail to make me laugh and share the best memories I have of Brooks, which always seem to be in the little things. It's the nights in the dining hall, just sitting, talking for hours, and the walks down to the lake that I will always remember. It's the days during winter term when Avery and I are the only two people in the library coloring the entire mandala that I think back to. It is the game hopping all around campus, cheering on my talented classmates as they are in their elements on the field and the courts that brings me happiness. It is this community that makes my Brooks experience meaningful. I was so focused on creating an image for myself here at the start, and it's the people at Brooks who have allowed me to find the best fitting identity, just me. So looking back at my Brooks goals now, I've had to reshape and be flexible about what I wanted to accomplish. Some goals never worked out for the utmost best. Others did go somewhat as planned, but then again, my goals did not come easily, and I'd have to put in the work to make them happen. But the best goal of all is not a goal at all, but rather what I have become in the process of trying to achieve it. And that is why I will never be able to capture my Brooks experience and the people that made it special by a list. Thank you.